All right, morning, everyone. We'll go and get started with head coach Jeff Traylor. Please use the raise hand function to ask questions and wait for me to call on you. Greg, you can go first.
Jeff, how you doing today? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we're good. Good morning, Greg.
Morning. You said after the game against Army that you guys would have a pissed off football team going to Temple. Have you noticed that attitude this week? How have the guys kind of carried themselves?
Well, I'd say very focused. Had a great practice last night. They practiced good Thursday and Wednesday as well. Wednesday we installed the plan, and then Thursday we practiced it a little harder. Then last night we got after it pretty good. Some good on good, full pads, pretty physical practice.
Have they been any different given the 1-3 record? I know it's been a lot of winning around here, and it's the first time you guys are in a situation like this.
I don't know that we ever feel good. When you're 4-0, like the year we came back and beat Memphis, it's just always different. But us being 1-3 and everybody telling us how bad you are every day is motivating in itself. But you also have to be careful not to let that define your team. And we've made sure and reminded them that there's 3 teams in the country trying to go back to back to back. And that's us, Michigan, and Utah. And we know who we are. We just got to play better football. We haven't played good football yet, but we know who we are, and we're getting better.
We'll go to you, JJ.
Jeff, what's the status of Frank Harris this week?
He practiced last night, and we'll see what he looks like in Temple. If he moves around well, he'll play. If he doesn't, we'll go with another quarterback.
How are you feeling overall about the health of your team coming out of this bye week?
We got some offensive line depth back. Buffalo's moving around a lot better. Meach is moving around a lot better. Payne Bear got to practice last night. Ben Rios got to practice last night. So those 4 guys will give us some more depth. We'll see what JT looks like. And we've got some banged up ones that we're holding out right now. But as a whole, we scrimmaged and got after it pretty physically last night and came out of that just banged up.
Did you guys practice last night under the lights? Is that the first time you used those?
It is. It was the first time last night. That was another monumental step in the old UTSA Roadrunner historic program. Now we get to practice under the lights.
Hey, Jake, we'll go to you.
Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
Hi.
Over the last 4 games, your offense has turned the ball over 8 times. What steps does your offense need to take in order to secure the ball this week?
Well, ball security is always, one of the number one indicators of a good football team. And we've turned it over 0 the entire year. So I think we're one of 2 teams in the country that have not done that. And then offensively, we fumbled the ball at the running back position a couple of times, which has been very disappointing. We've tried like the Dickens to clean that up. And then offensively, you can't throw it to the other team. We did it on back-to-back consecutive drives against Houston. Then we had the interceptions versus Tennessee, obviously. So it's kind of a mystery. I know that's not what media likes to hear, but it's something that we're extremely focused on, and probably worked harder at it this year about causing them than we ever have, and we've caused 0. And we felt like this is going to be one of our better defenses, and that's yet to show up in the last 2 weeks for sure.
Temple has also turned the ball over 8 times in the past 4 games. What is your plan to try to win the turnover battle this week?
Well, the game always is played up front. Our defensive line has got to be more physical. We've been in 4 games. We've not got a holding penalty yet, so they're not being disruptive. We've not turned the ball over yet, so we're not being disruptive. So we can all talk about how good we are and all this we were supposed to be, but it hasn't showed up yet. Offensively, we've ran the ball well all year except for the Tennessee game. We just got physically whipped, which is disappointing. And we've got to dominate up front. And we thought we were going to be pretty deep and good there. And it's time to show that in conference play.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Coach, how's it going today?
Steven, I've been better, but we're all right. We're all starting over.
Yeah. So just what are your thoughts on this new era of going into the American, and where do you think you are compared to where y'all might have been going into, say, Conference USA last year or the year before?
Well, I'm more focused on us, honestly, right now. I just thought we'd be in a way different spot than we are. And trying to figure out all those reasons and get it fixed is where all of our attention is right now. So Temple's the only one I'm looking at. Our advanced scouting is on UAB, but I haven't really done that. Obviously, I was like you guys this weekend, I would imagine. I watched the UAB Tulane game. I watched Rice and East Carolina. Thursday night, I watched Tulsa, and I watched, Temple. So it's not like I have total blinders on, but my main objective right now is on Temple. I think we'll be fine, Stephen, if we can fix us. We got to get us fixed. We've got to start playing better football, and that's why y'all hired me to do that. I have a football team that believes in what we do. They're great kids. They show up. They work their tails off. So you've always got a chance, Stephen, when you got kids that are totally bought in, and our kids really are. In spite of our record right now, they're still totally bought in.
And looking at Temple, what stands out to you about them?
The way their quarterback spreads the ball around. I mean, he was, I believe the freshman of the year in that conference last year. You look at some of his individual stats, the yards he threw for last year were crazy. Now, this year he had to play in the rain against Miami. He's had some tough situations, but he really deals the ball around. Number 15 is a really good wide receiver. The freshman running back is a good football player. Defensively, they take pride in their Temple toughness. That's where the single digits kind of started back in the day. So they take pride in theirs as well. They are their kickoff return team. What a huge play that was last year against Tulsa. I'm sorry, not last year, last week against Tulsa. They just had some moments, and they played a tough schedule. They played a Big Ten team in Rutgers and a Miami team that's really good right now. So they've played a tough schedule.
Greg?
Jeff, you mentioned to us last week that in your own life, you've often learned more from the painful moments than from some of the successes. Do you see any of that within the guys?
I guess we'll find out Saturday. I know they've really stepped up and they practiced well. And there's been nothing but greatness coming from those single-digit guys as far as their leadership and how they're holding each other accountable. And at some point, this thing will turn. You just don't know when. Because when you keep just staying at it in life, and I know I got a million quotes, but it's when you get knocked down, you got to get up. You got to look up, and you never can give up. And just so much of life is just that. It's just being able to honestly assess where you are, evaluate that, fix that, but never, ever lose your swag, man. You can't lose your confidence. Because, you hear enough of how bad you are, you'll start believing that nonsense. And I know we don't have a bad football team in spite of what our record is right now.
How do you balance that in a setting like a team meeting where you want to be able to point out all the negatives and areas to try to improve, but you also don't want to be something that's discouraging?
It's always the why. Like, why is this happening? Is it lack of effort? Is it lack of technique? Is it just a terrible position the coach put you in? You had no choice to begin with. So all those things are where we always get to is why. Like, why is this happening? And injuries cannot be part of the solution. Healthy teams don't win championships. Tough ones do. Next man up. And we all know that. That's why I all played sports when we were little. Every team gets injured. It's just part of the deal. So that can't be part of the equation of why. It's always effort, technique, scheme. Obviously, the player cannot take care of the scheme. That's on me as a coach. The technique should be coached by the coach. And the effort, you can't coach effort. You just put them on the bench if they don't play hard.
You touched on the leadership component. Are those guys even more critical at a time like this compared to when everything's going smoothly?
We've got some guys that have been around for a long time, so they've heard this message a lot. Self-evaluation is probably the most important tool of any of us in our lives. So we've got to be honest with ourselves and not listen to the noise, because most of the time that's just noise. There's always some truth amongst the noise, but if you go around your whole life just listen to the noise, you're never going to be able to really affect your own play. So just tune all that stuff out. You cannot be naive as a coach and not know those guys are not hearing all that stuff. So you got to kind of talk them through that just on their mental space. But we're the ones that have access to the video. We've got wide angle, tight angle, end zone, and we're trying our very best to keep our kids in that headspace right now.
Are there any particular areas you would highlight that you guys got better through this week of practice?
Well, you just don't know because you haven't played the game yet. That's where you always get your test. But I know there are certain areas that we have really stressed that we have not played well in, and those are the areas we've attacked this week.
I know you mentioned just a few minutes ago that you guys have focused maybe more on turnover creation than you had even in previous years. What does that look like in practice? How do you address that?
Just opportunities, when we could have gone for the ball, certain, points of emphasis. But I mean, it's something that it's been a mystery since we've been here. We started out, 1 year leading the country, and then all of a sudden it went away. And then 1 year we came back and we couldn't get any, and all of a sudden they showed back up. And it's just been a point of emphasis. Obviously, it's more highlighted this year because we're, hopefully just 25% of the way through the season. And we've only one of two teams in the country that hasn't caused one. So that's a pretty, if I'm a media guy, I'm asking that question for dang sure. I think my wife's even asking me.
I know you mentioned it's been kind of a pretty normal practice schedule, whereas with a later open week, you might take some off the guys. Do you have to worry at all about wear and tear later in the year, or how do you approach that part of it?
Yeah, I know that's a tough spot we're in right there, because we're not playing where we should be playing right now. So you can't overdo it. And I cut 2 periods last night. We'd just been so physical, and it was like a game going on out there. And we started having some guys, had to go to the training room. And I had to be smart and pull off because their intensity was game-like last night, which is what we need. But to your point, we also had to be smart that we don't take an injured team up to Philadelphia. We got to take a fresh, healthy, ticked-off team is what the plan is.
If I recall from past years, you never live tackle in practice. Have you changed that policy, or is that something you guys get into at all?
No, we will not tackle to the ground during the season. We tackle into pits. I mean, we've got things we tackle into. We're just not going to tackle into the ground.
How do you evaluate the defense's tackling to this point in the year?
We've had some, we've had our share of misses, and we've had some good ones. There's been some times we weren't, times we have been. We just hadn't, we were just really so dominant against Houston and Texas State. And then to take the 2 steps back-to-back weeks. We gotta see what that is. And I believe in my kids. I always have, and I still do. And I believe we're going to be fine defensively.
I don't think since Tennessee that we've talked about Trey Moore, who he came in maybe questionable a bit, nursing an injury there, but then seemed to play quite a bit. What was the process like?
He'll be a game time decision again. I mean, he didn't get to practice that week, and we'll see what he looks like. If he's not moving around good, it's supposed to be pretty wet on a grass field, so that's not good for people that don't have good feet, obviously. So we'll see what he looks like this week in practice, and if he can't go, we'll see what he looks like on the day of the game. Trey's played enough. He knows our scheme like the back of his hand, and if he can go, he'll go. If he can't, he won't.
What happened with Ken Robinson? He was kind of a surprise to not see him out there. Is there any update on how he's doing?
Same, just an injury that did not get better. We thought it would, and it didn't. So we decided to hold him out.
We talked about this a bit last season, but it's the second year in a row that there's been a lot of injuries on the offensive line in particular. Is there anything to that trend or anything you guys have noticed why that's kind of popped up 2 seasons in?
Where the most contact is. I mean, it's a lot of guys have O-line injuries. We're not the only team. There's a lot of them that have them. So, yeah, we looked. We really worked hard on ankle mobility more than we ever have before because we had so many ankle injuries last year. That hadn't shown up. Each one of those kids' injuries has been a different injury in a different situation again. So Mekhi actually stepped on Eddie's foot. If you go back and watch the game. So we didn't do very many drills where we stepped on each other's feet and tried to, maneuver that. I'm being silly. But some of those things are unavoidable. The way you practice, you got to be smart. Like we lost Payne with a scout team guy, falling into him. So each one, Ben Rios is just doing a back pedal drill when he got injured. So you just got to kind of look at each one of them and then, assess what is that. It's really unfortunate for Mekhi because that's 2 years in a row. Meach was an ACL in the Texas game last year that he's still coming back from. So they've all been kind of different. We haven't had last year we had a terrible run of ankles. But we're also a big block down, kick out team. And a lot of times you're a block down, kick out team, whether that's GT or GY or just power. Because of the angles, you can get people rolled up in your ankles a little bit. So some of that has been in play, but we've been good on our ankles. So I know we've hired a nutritionist and we've tried to be more attentive there. Our body fat's lower than it's ever been before. So we're all the things we're tracking. We're trying to be more attentive to all that.
One of the other things you mentioned last week was the impact of the whole adjusting to a new offensive coordinator and how that changes everybody's job there. How do you evaluate the job that Justin Burke has done?
Well, it's pretty easy. The head coach is a 1-3 head football coach, and the offensive coordinator is a 1-3 offensive coordinator, and the defensive coordinator is a 1-3 offensive coordinator. That's defensive coordinator. All right. It's the only stats we keep up with, Brother Greg. And we know we've struggled on offense. We're not proud of it at all. Actually, we're tired of not doing it. So we're working our tails off. I'd say he's a 1-3 OC working for a 1-3 coach.
Thank you. It's today, actually, so you're right on time.
And then one of the bright spots there has been Robert Henry, his production. How is it compared to what you thought when you brought him in here?
He's been really, I would say, one of the bright spots. I mentioned that in a couple of other deals I did this morning. It's probably been the highlight of our first 4 games. Is just with all the different people out there. We kind of know who we are a little bit better right now. We've had to play 3 quarterbacks. We've had to play, every receiver on the roster has been out there. Pretty much every O-line combination we could do, we've kind of already had to do. Stayed relatively healthy on defense. We thought that was going to be the strength of our team, which it was the first 2 weeks. And then we've kind of gone backwards over the last 2 weeks. So we're inconsistent, Greg, and that's nobody's fault but the head coach. So I've got to be more consistent and get this thing fixed.
How did his injury in the spring, Robert, sort of impact his process of learning the offense and kind of getting him up to speed in what he's done now?
Obviously, it hindered him. It's why Rocco was so far in front of him, and obviously Kavorian when the season started. Just knowing all the protections, and I would say that the Lord made him his ability to run the football. He's very talented, but just the pass protections are the things he had to get cleaned up. And we hated it that he missed all of spring. That was tough.
Anything else for Coach Traylor this morning? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all. God bless. Birds up.
Thank you, Jeff.